of Christ. And so we exercise these spiritual gifts for the growth and strength of the body. But I want to ask you, is Christformation occurring in your life? Are you becoming more like Christ? The way you love your neighbor, the way you raise your kids, the way you interact with your work colleagues. Are you rejecting sin? Are you spiritually protecting your family? Are you investing your time, energy, and resources for eternity? Are you seeing Christformation happen in your life? What's robbing you of your affection for King Jesus? It's another question I want you to think about. Now, there may not even be bad things that are robbing you of your affections. I enjoy being entertained. I talked about how I enjoy sports. My wife and I, we enjoy watching Netflix and Prime. Have you noticed that when you're watching Netflix or Prime now, like you're watching a show, and as soon as the show's over, it's like 3, 2, 1, you're into the next one, all right? You don't even get a choice anymore. You're just in, right? And so we can, without even thinking about it, we can kind of get into this entertainment-driven priority in our life. But we need to ask ourselves, is that robbing our affection for King Jesus? Is it causing our priorities to be misaligned? And I want to ask you this. Who are you laboring for Christformation? Paul's able to labor over the Galatians because he's a spiritual father. He calls them children. He's mature in Christ. Now, the takeaway from this is that you and I need to grow up. We need to be laboring over people in such a way that we can help them spiritually grow and be effective, come alongside them and strengthen them. Now, we're not going to be effective laborers if we don't grow up. I was talking to Bethany about this a week or two ago as I was preparing for this message, and I was thinking back to when we have 4 children. They're about 2 years apart. I was thinking about when our oldest was about 3 and our daughter was about 1, and I was saying, hey, Bethany, was there ever a time that Joseph and Lizzie were playing and Lizzie needed a diaper change, and Joseph said, hey, time out, Mom. I'm going to run up to the changing table. I'm going to grab a diaper and wipe, and I'm going to go ahead and just take care of sis, and then I'll get back into playtime. I asked her if that ever happened, and she just kind of looked at me. Bethany looked at me like I was one of the Galatians, like I was an idiot, and then she's like, why are you asking me this question? But the question, it was just going on in my mind because I'm thinking, babies can't help babies, right? I mean, that's not going to happen. And the reality is that a lot of people in the church, they're spiritual babies, and they're not able to help one another because they're not growing. They're not growing up in the Lord. They're not having Christformation happen in their life. So if we're going to be effective laborers like Paul is, we need Christformation. We need to grow up in the Lord. Early on in the church history, Christianity is springing up across the Roman Empire. Caesar's trying to put it down. He's trying to squash it. But these pockets of Christians just keep popping up. And so finally, 125 AD, Caesar Hadrian, he assigns Aristides the philosopher. He says, I want you to go investigate these Christians. I want you to provide me a report. I want to know what they're about. I want to try to understand why this is happening and who these people are. Here's the report that comes back from Aristides the philosopher to Caesar. He says, they do not worship strange gods, and they go their way in all modesty and cheerfulness. Falsehood is not found among them, and they love one another. And from widows they